For this video, we're going to be subtracting mixed numbers. Just like with the other video, with adding mixed numbers, we're going to break it apart. We're going to look at our whole numbers and we're going to look at our fractions. But instead of doing the whole numbers first, I want to do the fractions first in case we have to borrow. Even in regular subtracting, sometimes you have to borrow. So I'm going to look at my fractions first. So in this case, I have 2/3 minus 1/3. In this case, these fractions already have the same denominator, so just have to subtract the numerators. I could do 2 minus 1 without borrowing. So 2 minus 1 is 1. My denominator is still 3, so I have a fraction of 1/3. So now I can subtract my whole numbers. 34 minus 8, it gives me 26. Just like with the adding fractions, I'm going to add my whole number and my fraction part back together. So my final answer is 26 1/3. I want to look at the next problem we have. I have a whole number of 18 minus 16 1/8, so I can't subtract a fraction. If I have a fraction here, it would be 0 over a number, or 0 over a denominator. So in order to get a fraction here for the 18, I have to borrow 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from the 18, and I get 17, so that changes my 18 now to a 17. And I have a fraction of 1 over 1. But I can also write the 1, or the 1 over 1, wrote that wrong up there, as 8 over 8, because 8 divided by 8 is the same as 1. I chose 8 because my denominator here is 8. So now I can have 17 and 8 over 8 minus 16 and 1/8. So again, I'm going to subtract my fractions first. I'm going to do 8 over 8 minus 1 over 8 gives me 7 over 8. Then I'm going to subtract my whole numbers. 17 minus 16, and I get 1. And I'm going to write them, or add them back together, my whole number plus my fraction. And I have 1 7/8. Okay, really I don't have to add them back together. I can just write it as my whole number and my fraction, however you want to do that. All right, so let's look at this third problem. Same type of deal. I have a whole number minus a mixed number. I need to find a fraction. So I'm going to borrow 1 from the 8. If I borrow 1 from the 8 becomes 7. And my 1 is going to become 5 over 5, because this has a denominator of 5. So now I have 7 and 5 over 5 minus 2 and 4 over 5. So again, even though I've already borrowed, I'm still going just to be in the habit of subtracting my fractions first. 5 over 5 minus 4 over 5 gives me 1 over 5. And then I'm going to subtract my whole numbers. So 7 minus 2 is 5. So without going through the process of adding them together, I'm just going to write them as a mixed number. So 5 1/5. I've got to circle this one. So now just something a little bit more complicated. I have 16 and 8/35 minus 13 and 2/7. So this is what I'm talking about here. I want to subtract my fractions first. So I have 8 over 35 minus 2 over 35. 2 over 35. That's 2 over 7. Evidently I can't read today either. So minus 2 over 7. Now, have to have a common denominator. Least common denominator, common denominator. I know 7 times 5 gives me 35. So I'm going to multiply by 5, so I can multiply the top by 5. When I do that, I'm still going to have the 8 over 35. 2 times 5 is 10. 7 times 5 is 35. Now this is where it looks like I'm going to have to borrow 1, because I can't take 8 or I cannot take 10 from 8. I can't do 8 minus 10 and get a positive number. So I'm going to borrow 1 from my 16, which will make that 15. I should have put that in a different color so you guys could kind of follow along. So I'll make that 15. The 1 I borrowed from here, since my denominators are 35, I'm going to make my 1 35 over 35. And I borrowed it from 16, so it's got to go with my 8. So I'm going to add 8 over 35. So when I add 35 over 30, or 35 plus 8, I get 43 over 35. So this is this first fraction. So 43 over 35. And I'm going to subtract the 10 over 35. And that leaves me with 33 over 35. Now I can subtract my whole numbers. So I'm going to subtract the 15, and I'm going to take away the 13. And that leaves me with 2. So then, writing my fraction and my whole number as a mixed number, I have 2 and 33 over 35. All right, one last problem. I've got 26 and 3/4 minus 24 and 4/7. So again, I'm going to subtract my fractions first. 3/4 minus 4/7. I'm going to get a common denominator. I generally just multiply the two denominators together. So I'm going to multiply 4 times 7, and 7 times 4. So I'm going to multiply that 3 times 7. And that's going to give me 21 over 28. And then I'm going to multiply this 4 times 4. And that will give me 16 over 28. And I can subtract the 21 minus 16. 21 minus 16 gives me 5 over 28. So I didn't have to borrow on this one, just had to get a common denominator. So now I can subtract my whole numbers. 26 minus 24, that's 2. And then I have 2 and 5 over 28. So anytime that your first fraction is less than your second fraction, you have to borrow one from the whole number. I hope this video helps with subtracting mixed numbers.